You want to know something interesting and crazy? We still don't know what happened to flight, what is it, MH370, Malaysian Airlines. We still don't know what happened with it. I want to dive into the conspiracy theories tonight. Let's check them out.
Remember Malaysian Airlines? This flight disappeared, nobody knew where it went. But around that same time, there's this guy that received a voicemail, and on the voicemail was like a decoded message. He posted this on Twitter, and you know the military alphabet? So like Delta, Tango, Alpha, Charlie, right? What happened was he recorded this whole code and wrote it out. Now the voicemail, it translated to this code that says S danger, SOS. It is dire for you to evacuate. Be cautious, they are not human. And then gave like a whole long number. Now check this out. When this guy received this voicemail was the day that the Malaysian Airlines flight vanished. So there's theories and conspiracies that the voicemail he actually received was transmitted through the Malaysian Airlines black box. Oh, what's even crazier, that long number that he received too, that is the last coordinates of the flight. What? Yeah, so check this out. This guy on Twitter posted it. Now, what happened was he started getting stalked. I think around like 3 a.m. at night, he saw this car parked outside of his house, and he noticed.
Now that's interesting, because if you listen to the stories and news reports and everything about this flight, the pilot did receive a call from some unknown number with a person on the line with an alias. You know what I mean? A lot of speculation points to the pilot as what could have possibly happened with this flight. I think where he was from kind of coincided with where they ended up being, or the last known whereabouts of it after it had went off course and went to this place. Like, it's a lot of things pointing to that pilot, man.
The most insane theory is the one of the Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which randomly disappeared with 239 passengers on board. To this day, nobody truly knows what happened to it, as it was such a common flight. The pilot communicates with the control tower, and the last words he says are "Good night, Malaysia." This brings up the theory that the pilot had turned insane and nosedived the plane into the ocean. The Malaysian 340 connects to a communications tower after 2 seconds. The plane disappears from all radars. For a plane to disappear from civilian radar, it can only mean that the plane has lost all power or has been
And that's something they were pointing to. They were saying that it seemed like the power was being turned off manually. Again, pointing to that pilot. You see where we're going here?
manually turned off, or it exploded in 2 seconds. But if the plane is losing power, it couldn't have traveled as far as it did from here. When it lost the signal, some people think extraterrestrials are behind us, or that it's a black hole. But I think it's a cover-up. The main journalist in charge of this case disappeared in 2020. Apparently, the Malaysian army could see the plane for almost an hour, and it circled for 20 minutes. It was even spotted on military radar, but nobody reacted. And the strangest thing of all is that apparently before the plane took off, a clandestine shipment of over a ton of military equipment was smuggled in without passing through the security gates. So what do you think, was it the government or the pilots?
And that's like I was saying before, man. You would think after 9/11, different things. You go to the airport now, how long it take you to get through there? A long time, right? Why? Because of security, right? So how does something like this happen? That's the question. How?
What did the missing plane MH370 actually encounter? On the 8th of March, 2014, the Malaysian plane MH370 disappeared without a trace. Though many people came up with theories on what may have actually happened, the case remained inconclusive until recently. Well, you see, the footage you're about to see was just declassified from satellite imagery, and it's rather strange. Take a look. As you can see, strange objects descended from the sky and started circling the plane before it disappeared. Well, some think that this was a planned attack, while others think that this is an abduction. But till this day, nobody knows.
That's sad, man. That many people, bro. And the fact that we have no answers. Now, another thing I heard as well is that I think the Malaysian government, don't quote me on this, but allegedly is not cooperating when it comes to that phone call. As far as a person with a different alias and the SIM card from the phone, everybody was talking about that type of thing. There's no cooperation there.
It's one of the most evil, vicious Navy bases in the history of the planet. They do stuff that would make Look like Santa Claus. This is a game, and if you can't follow that thread, then you don't see it.
That's crazy.
Huh?
What were the patents for?
Oh, the patents was, you heard people talk about they're gonna one day inject you and can control you. Well, these guys come up with something, they don't have to inject you. They just put it in this room and you come in and you smell it. That's what they were for.
Bro, are you kidding me? Is there any way we could figure this out? Like, I don't even know if I want to figure this out, bro. This is the type of stuff people go like missing for. Nah. I'm going to just leave it at that. Moving on. That's scary.
An airplane went missing and evidence shows that UFOs are responsible. Back in 2014, a Malaysian airplane went missing shortly after taking off, and now new videos are emerging showing UFOs swarming the airplane right before it disappears. Sounds crazy, I get it, but here's the evidence. Malaysian authorities said an unidentified blob was around the plane at the time of the disappearance.
What do you see on
It's a blob. It's a blob. Unidentified blob.
Dude, and Chinese satellites picked up 3 objects right next to the airplane. What a coincidence. The video shows 3 objects swarming the airplane. And guess what? The American satellite that recorded this video is called NROL-22, and it orbited right next to the airplane at the time of its disappearance, proving the satellite was in position to record the video. Here's the weird part. The craft was carrying a confidential cargo that hasn't been publicly disclosed, so people are thinking the UFOs intercepted the plane for the cargo. And to top it off, the Malaysian Prime Minister said that the CIA is covering something up.
Sounds like Project Bluebeam to me, don't it? Like, listen to all the theories that you're hearing about it. Cargo, mysterious calls, patents. How can this many stories surround something like this and not something be true? I'm just saying.
The Malaysian flight that went missing. So apparently some footage came out from this satellite that had caught the flight. You will see in the image, the flight's just regularly flying. Then all of a sudden, one dot appears next to this flight.
Oh shit.
And it's following the flight. Then all of a sudden, 2 dots. And then it's 3 dots. You'll see them go in a circular motion as if they're tracking the flight. And then, while that's all happening, the flight just goes, and I shot. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, that doesn't actually happen in the real world.
Vanished.
That single-handedly ruled out everything because it's caught on satellite footage.
That's fucking crazy.
I understand the UFOs, but what baffles me more is that it just vanished.
Gone.
Done.
And the fact that 270 something lives lost or missing, and this thing just still goes unresolved.
These are videos humans were never meant to see. Okay, so we all know how Malaysia Flight 370 completely disappeared without a trace. Well, the video I'm about to show you shows what people are saying is Flight 370 disappearing through a portal with 3 orbs rotating around it. Do you think this video is real or fake? Either way, it's extremely interesting and it's completely going viral. Here it is.
If I was watching a paranormal video, I would swear those were orbs. See, and when it comes to that video, we've seen it a couple of times now. A piece of me was like, I wonder if this is the video they just toss out. Get our scent off the trail. Give them some type of CGI style video. We don't know that's what it is. I'm just telling you some of my thoughts surrounding some of these things. You know what I mean? Don't know.
Netflix coming out with a miniseries about Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is the best thing to happen so far in
Really?
2023. This story is something that makes me feel like I could seriously benefit from a straitjacket. Malaysia
So it's already out? Oh, I'm gonna have to sit my family down to watch this. Was it good? Y'all let me know, was it good in the comment section?
Airlines Flight 370 is the most absurd flight that I've ever heard of, and probably the biggest mystery in all of aviation. In March 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off with 239 people on board from Kuala Lumpur, headed to Beijing. After the plane took off, they lost contact with air traffic control, obviously never arrived in Beijing, and all these years later, still nobody really knows exactly what happened. There's like a million conspiracy theories about what people think exactly happened. I personally think that there was either a decompression on board or the pilots had something to do with it. I used to think that it was only like the result of a decompression because of the loss of contact with air traffic control. That makes sense to me because if there was a decompression, the pilots would become unconscious and they wouldn't be able to contact air traffic control. And this is something that happened before with Helio's Flight 522. There was a decompression and the plane just continued to fly until it crashed. However, I definitely think that there's something more to this story because you could see where the plane took off in Kuala Lumpur, lost air traffic control, then made all of these turns, then continued to fly and crashed somewhere in the South Indian Ocean. So in my mind, if it was just a decompression and the pilots passed out, the plane would continue to fly on its scheduled route on autopilot until...
And I actually watched the one about that other flight he talked about. And when that happened to them, the pilots passed out. But the plane kept going. And when I think they sent military up after it to see what was going on, to expect or whatever was going on. And when the military planes came up beside it, it saw them slumped over in there until one guy, I don't know if he came from the back. I think he was one of the stewardess on the, or the flight attendants on the plane. And, which was crazy because if I recall, he was working like an overtime. You know what I mean? Somebody couldn't work that day and he just happened to volunteer. He ran up there and grabbed the mic and was just trying to tell them and talk to them, but it still ended up going down. And it went down and crashed. So, but to say what was happening, the pilots were slumped over, but the thing was still on like autopilot cruising until it went out. So yeah.
Till it either ran out of gas or something else happened. And there were a lot of things that suggest that Captain Zahari had something to do with it.
Yep.
Here's a picture of him in his house with a flight simulator, and it said that he actually programmed that exact flight route into the simulator and flew it shortly before he actually operated Malaysia Flight 370.
And he looked up some things on his computer that they found as well. There's a lot of things pointing to this pilot.
He also worked as a pilot for over 33 years and had over 18,000 flight hours, which that is a ton of hours. Obviously, it's different between flight attendants and pilots, but for me as a flight attendant, I would say average hours worked a month is between 70 and 100 hours. So obviously with 18,000 hours, he was very familiar with the plane, air traffic control, everything involved with the job. So to me, that means that he wouldn't make a stupid, simple mistake. Also, the last thing that people heard on the plane was Goodnight Malaysian 370 from Captain Zahari, and shortly after that, they lost contact with air traffic control.
But that was because he was telling them goodnight because he was supposed to be switching over to the next air traffic control once he got in their airspace, is what I was under assumption of from a lot of the information I saw before or listened to in a video.
Shortly after that, the transponder was turned off, and obviously the plane crashed and was not really ever found. So considering the amount of flight hours that he had, it makes me think that he knew how to lose contact with air traffic control and how to kind of go off the radar. Obviously, it's...
Now that's a fact. That's a fact. He did know how to do that.
It's hard to know exactly what happened because a lot of it seems to be just pure speculation. But the entire story is absurd, and it's insane to think that that actually can happen. 2014 was not that long ago.
Malaysian Flight 370 was shot down, and I saw it happen with my own two eyes. Unless you've been living under a rock, the case of Malaysian Flight 370 is the biggest unsolved mystery in aviation history. I've seen multiple conspiracies as to what happened, where people believe the plane was hijacked by some sort of extremist group, or they were shot down by the Malaysian government, but they are both far from right, and I know because I watched it happen. For context, the flight took off at 12:41 a.m. and reached cruising altitude by 1:01 a.m. Everything seemed normal until its aircraft communication addressing and reporting system and the plane's transponder, which communicated with air traffic control, were switched off. The plane veered off its original path, and Malaysian military radar eventually lost contact with it over the Andaman Sea. This act would be what engages the largest search effort in human history. Initial search efforts were focused on the South China Sea, but as it was discovered that the flight had turned west, the search moved to the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. Satellite signals suggested the plane might be anywhere on two arcs, one stretching southward from Java into the Indian Ocean and the other stretching northward across Asia. On March 24th, based on final signals analysis, and the Malaysian government concluded that the flight had crashed in the Indian Ocean, and it was unlikely that anyone survived. They were wrong. The first piece of debris, a right-wing flaperon, was discovered on a beach in Réunion in July 2015. In the following year and a half, 26 more pieces of debris were found on shores of several countries, some of which were identified as parts of Flight 370. Now that you get the gist of it, most of this information is correct, except the fact that they are missing one key piece of evidence, the plane's altitude history. At the time, I was working on a cargo ship, and our technology on the boat was capable of identifying rapidly moving objects on both axes, which allowed us to virtually observe the horrifying feat of Malaysian flight. Signals recorded by our radar showed the missing airliner climbing to an abnormal 45,000 feet, 10,000 feet above the traditional flight altitude of airplanes. Within a near instant, the plane began making a descent, but it was at a speed that I had never seen before. The plane descended a total of 20,000 feet in the span of 60 seconds. I began to realize that this was no normal matter and I felt obligated to investigate. As the plane's altitude continued to decline below 20,000 feet, I noted down the predicted coordinates of this plane through our radar and immediately veered our ship in that direction. I recall my shipmates questioning me over the radio captain. "What is going on up there?" I tried to explain my observation to him, but it was no help. I was rapidly approaching the diving plane. But something caught my eye, something far in the distance that made me realize a potential roadblock in my path to the plane. It was an island, and the island wasn't empty. It was inhabited, and there was what seemed to be a large gray facility there. Checking my GPS and my controls, I searched for what I was looking at, wondering if I should even be veering off our shipping path in the first place. I continued to look, switching between my view of the screen and my distant perception of the island, until I saw two gigantic ships in the shape of aircraft carriers heading in my direction. I received a buzz over our intercom. The call was coming from those ships. I continued to head forward as I had no time to waste. But when I answered the radio, I was greeted with a stern, cold voice. "This is the United States government. You are entering American waters and are no longer in fishing waters. As you are breaking international water laws, we are warning you that your boat will be shot down if you choose to continue to approach this direction. Do not engage with any surrounding aircraft, whether they are aquatic or aviators." Confused yet skeptical,
Like, they literally gonna do that to a boat?
I decided to bring my boat to a stop. I responded, "There is a plane crashing further north. I was going to investigate it. I can forward you the coordinates if you like." A long silence followed. He said we don't need them, and the intercom was disconnected. I watched as the boats turned around and began heading in the direction of the plane. I never said anything about my encounter initially, as I thought that the boats were going to rescue the passengers. But as I returned back to my home a month later after transporting cargo, I noticed on the news that the flight was still missing, meaning the United States government had not come forward with their information.
Trust me, bro. I'm skeptical of this story too, but I'm listening. You know what I mean? Especially when he said a boat could be shot down. It's in the water though. It's not in the air.
I fear that they will find me for releasing this information, but something should have been done by now. The families of those innocent passengers deserve justice and closure.
Do y'all remember the story about Malaysian Airlines MH370 going missing? Well, if not, then I got a treat for y'all. Let's get it. On March 8th of 2014, the Malaysian Airlines plane MH370 was heading from Kuala Lumpur International Airport to its planned destination of Beijing Capital International Airport. Between the departure between Kuala Lumpur Airport and the Beijing Capital International Airport, what could have happened? There's always been a few theories circling this, and I got two of them. It all literally could have just been a freak accident. Got lost on the way, bad weather, errors within the plane, anything. But there is evidence and speculation that something else could have happened. If you're traveling across the Indian Ocean, you will come across an island, a military island, by the name of Diego Garcia, at the size of just 14 kilometers. Well, what does that have to do with the MH370? Alright, let me tell y'all. Just 10 days later, after the Malaysian Airlines and MH370 were finally pronounced missing, a photo and an anonymous email spawns out of nowhere from someone that works at IBM named Philip Wood. And this email alone sent the whole internet into a frenzy. It took no time for the people to go to work. Once the image was discovered, it was pinpointed that the location that the image was captured at was Diego Garcia Island. Some people believe, like similar islands that we've seen before, the same thing could have happened with Diego Garcia Island, and also that it could be a lot more underneath the scene and the surface than what appears to the eye. A lot of people believe that the MH370 was hijacked by military personnel and then taken to the base of Diego Garcia, in which all the passengers on board were taken underground and then tortured. These are the other conspiracies surrounding the MH370 and the Malaysian Airlines flight that went missing.
Let's read some of these. It was shot down during a joint military exercise between the U.S. and Thailand and South Korea seas. That doesn't say Korea. I can't see what it says. But was hijacked by terrorists, was forced to land at Diego Garcia, the British-owned island in the Indian Ocean. So that must have been up there. Must have been South Indian Sea. Home to a major U.S. military base. An unknown weapon plucked aircraft out of the sky without leaving a shred of evidence. I can't really read this one. It was a mass of plane passengers and crew of MH370 were incapacitated by the unknown unresponsive crew hypoxia event. The rogue pilot, which would believe the plane's captain, made a deliberate descent into the Indian Ocean, which I think that one out of all of them is the one that seems to be closest to where all the evidence is pointing towards.
And while none of us truly ever know the truth, all we can do is assume, but just know nothing is what it seems like. And whatever they saying the truth is, that ain't the truth, because we never get the truth.
This is one of the craziest conspiracy theories. The Malaysian Flight 370 that disappeared with 239 passengers on it. Until this day, nobody knows what happened. So this was a very common flight. They were flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. And as they're flying, the pilot communicates with the tower. And the last words he says
"Good night.
are "Good night, Malaysia." 1 minute.
But what people are leaving out that is sort of kind of normal when you're switching over to another air traffic control. So how you end the call, it's dark, it's late, it's nighttime, good night to them, and you're supposed to pick up, but he never did for the next one.
And 43 seconds later, right here, it disappears off of all the radars. For a plane to disappear off a civilian radar, it can only mean that the plane lost complete power or that it was manually turned off. But if a plane loses power, it wouldn't have been able to travel as far as it did from right here the moment it lost signal. Some people think aliens were behind this or a black hole, but I think it was a cover-up. Part 2.
A Twitter user named Tyler uploaded a video about a strange voicemail he received. Let's watch the video and pay close attention.
Sierra, Delta, Alpha, November, Golf, Echo, Romeo, Sierra, Oscar, Sierra.
The voicemail message seems to be encoded using a phonetic alphabet, commonly used by the military and police. It's a way to spell out a message when communication over the radio is difficult. Tyler figured out that the message spelled Danger SOS. The message urged him to evacuate and provided coordinates. Tyler received a message from another user which, when translated, referred to Tyler's previous post about the voicemail. Tyler then shared an incident where someone was taking pictures of his house late at night. Furthermore, the given coordinates are close to the location where the Malaysian airplane went down. The theory suggests that the voicemail contains the black box recording, which typically contains the last interactions of a plane before a crash. The theory proposes that the message is an SOS to save our ship, warning of something non-human. There is speculation that the recent occurrence of large solar flares causing electromagnetic activity in the atmosphere is amplifying the voicemail signals, resulting in random people receiving the calls. The user suggests that the timing of these events aligns with the solar flares occurring closer to southern Asia and Australia.
We need to look in and see if there's any truth to this. Where's Tyler now? You know what I mean? What happened? Does he go in great detail and tell the story and continues to give updates, stuff like that? We need to know.
The missing MH370 flight. A fact-based timeline. March 8, 2014, 042 MIT. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 departs from Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia en route to Beijing Capital International Airport in China. carrying 239 passengers, 119 MYT. The last voice communication from the cockpit is made with the words "Good night, Malaysian 370-121 MYT." The position symbol of Flight 370 disappears from KLACC radar, indicating the aircraft's transponder is no longer functioning. The plane changes its course towards the west to 22 MYT. The last primary radar contact is made by the Malaysian military. The plane continues to fly for 6 hours. Plane was scheduled to land at Beijing Airport at 6:30 MIT, 8:19 MYT. Last automatic satellite communication between the aircraft and Inmarsat Sat Communications Network, sometime between 8:19 MYT and 9:15 MYT. The plane disappears. 9:15 MYT. The aircraft does not respond to an hourly automated handshake attempt. Some possible trajectories were estimated after the last known location. These trajectories were calculated based on the last Inmarsat pings, which occurred until 8:19 MYT. The only information these pings provide is the distance between the plane and the satellite, meaning that additional data and estimates were used for a possible trajectory of the airplane. The missing
Listen, man, I have a lot of questions still. I'm pretty sure a lot of you do as well. There's still a lot of things that have gone unsolved about this entire thing. Questions, why wasn't there like any military pilots or aircraft sent out there to investigate while it was still in the air? That was a question that I have. And we need to definitely look into what Dick Gregory was saying about those scientists. Were they on board? Was that possible? It's interesting nonetheless, man. You know, this is going to go down as one of the most mysterious things that ever happened in our lifetime. Y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what you thought of this video, man. Till next one, I'm gone.